G'day again. This is episode 4 of the series called Trev's Talk, and I'm your host, Trev. Last week, in episode 3, I explained how, when the COVID pandemic forced me and my volunteers to leave the Aboriginal school, I was put into a position of having free time, which I had not had for years due to my community service work. So then, because of some peculiar clues I had received in the past, I decided to write a book on my life. To explain about the clues that led me to writing a book, I need to talk a bit about the other amazing experiences I was given at Medjugorje when I visited there in 1990. My first life-changing experience, when on the rocky hill called Apparition Hill and described in episode 2, occurred on my first day at Medjugorje. That was a Sunday. On the Wednesday of that week, I experienced the phenomenon of the sun, where it was covered by a white disk, so that only the very outside edges showed the sun's normal bright flare, and this made it possible to stare at the sun without hurting or harming your eyes. I have since learned that many visitors to Medjugorje get to experience the phenomenon of the disk shielding the sun's harmful glare so that it can be stared at without causing eye damage. In the landscape of Medjugorje, there are two major features. One is the rocky hill called Apparition Hill, and the other is a mighty rocky hill called Cross Mountain. It is called that because it has a large concrete cross at the summit, which the Medjugorje villagers had erected there many decades earlier. On the Friday of my week's visit to the village, I left my accommodation to walk over to Cross Mountain with the intention of climbing it, as all visitors seem to do. On the 20 to 30 minute walk to Cross Mountain, I had thoughts that I was doing a good thing by climbing it. I thought this about 4 times during my walk, and each time I had the thought, I was rewarded with a wave of goosebumps all over my body. These goosebumps were really strong and made a deep impression on me. My previous experience of day 1 on Apparition Hill had made me super sensitive to all things supernatural, and that made me take particular notice of the goosebumps. I never experienced goosebumps like that again until fast forward 13 years to 2003, when I took a lady named Alva with me on Vinnie's house calls to needy families. House calls are where you help people with food or bills or stuff like that. I had volunteered with Vinnie's since my Medjugorje experiences in 1990, and this lady wanted to go on a house call with a Vinnie's person to learn how to do house calls herself. When we chatted in my car after doing the house calls, Alva mentioned how she had cared for her terminally ill late husband for his last 4 years of life, and wham! I was suddenly covered in goosebumps. I got quite a shock, as my mind went instantly to the incredible experience I had 13 years before on Cross Mountain at Medjugorje. I immediately asked Alva if I could meet with her again for a chat, as I felt a great need to talk with her and see if I could find some reason for the goosebumps. It turned out that I met with her several times, and although I did not discover any spiritual reason for the goosebumps, I did discover a lovely woman with a beautiful heart and swapped my interest from spiritual query to romantic interest. It turned out that I married Alva 8 months after our first goosebump meeting, and you could rightly say, goosebumps found me a wife. Cross Mountain has 14 stopping places on the strenuous climb up, and at each stopping place there is a religious icon symbolising Jesus' torture through his trial and carrying his cross to the place of his crucifixion. At the top of the massive hill, there is a huge concrete cross which the Medjugorje villagers had constructed there decades before. Building that huge cross would have been a massive task in those early times, as all materials were carried up by hand. I was given incredibly powerful experiences at every one of those 14 stopping places upon my climbing up Cross Mountain. At each stop, I was overcome with a flood of tears, while emotions boiled around inside my body and in my head at the same time. I felt sorrow, shame, regret, and remorse, all tied up with the knowledge that I had done all the things that tortured Jesus during my past life. The greatest one of those sorrow-remorse experiences came at the sight of the huge cross when I reached it. I sat on a rock near it and bawled from deep within. It was overpowering and like a purging from deep within. And after what seemed like 20 minutes or so, a new emotional feeling started creeping in, and that was a feeling of peace. Peace started overshadowing the awful feelings and kept slowly getting stronger until it was the only feeling left, and my heart felt as though it was stretched tight by the peace within it. I was left with the thought that the whole experience on Cross Mountain was a reconciliation with the great power spirit, a reconciliation that wiped out all the wrong deeds of my past life and gave me knowledge that I could go forward from then on with a clean slate. Experiencing goosebumps during my initial meeting with Alva, my wife, 13 years after experiencing them when walking to Cross Mountain, firmly established in my mind the importance of goosebumps, and they came to me many times afterwards to guide me into doing good things within the community. I received goosebumps when I heard people talking about writing books about their lives on several occasions. I immediately took serious notice and concluded that the spiritual world was guiding me into writing about my life. When the COVID pandemic forced my retirement from the Aboriginal school and I suddenly had plenty of free time, I put in the effort and wrote an abridged autobiography and was as starkly honest as I could possibly be. I believe now that the spiritual world wanted me to write the biography so that my story was out into the public before the Medjugorje is fully empowered, and my book would make it clear that I am just an ordinary man with shortcomings and faults like any other man, but have been gifted with the Medjugorje, and when the Medjugorje heals people, it is not my doing, but an act of the Great Spirit power. If the book becomes in demand, the proceeds will go towards funding my family members so that they can work for the charity, the Medjugorje Centre, free of any charge. My family will look after the admin of the charity, using volunteers wherever possible, so that the charity can dispense any donations received 100% into good charitable causes. The Medjugorje Centre will be a charity of maximum integrity. Hey, wonderful listeners, if you haven't listened to all episodes, please go back and listen from episode 1 to get a good understanding of my story. Please put comments on Spotify or on YouTube if you are listening there. I know because of my experiences there that the Medjugorje phenomenon is really happening and everybody needs to know about it. Please tell family and friends how to listen to my podcasts. And don't forget, you can also chat with me on trevstalk@outlook.com. It is of great importance that we get the word out as widely as possible. Just imagine how much good can be accomplished with the Medjugorje once it is fully empowered. In the next episode, I will chat about the possibilities of running a free trial of the Medjugorje, where I could have, say, 30 people with a variety of health problems try the Medjugorje over a period and then report on any benefits received. Now that's enough for today. To hear more about incredible Medjugorje and my amazing experiences there, you need to tune in again next week. Remember, my email again is Trev's Talk. And this is Trev tuning out for now.